What about vegetarians, though? Eating meat shortens our life, but who lives longer? Those eating low meat or those eating no meat? Three choices: low meat, no meat, or they both live the same. Do you think eating a little meat will help you live longer, or is it like smoking, where there's no such thing as a safe level of meat consumption? Or do you think that the latest science says no difference, that you appear to get the same longevity benefit from cutting down on meat as you get from cutting it out? If you said low meat, you're wrong. But if you said either no meat or no difference, you're right, and that's because it depends on whether we're talking about studies on American vegetarians or British vegetarians. American vegetarians live longer than healthy meat eaters, but British vegetarians do not. Why do British vegetarians lose some of their advantage? Lots of theories, but my guess is that it's because they appear less likely to supplement their diet with vitamin B12 fortified foods or supplements. I'm not going to harp on it too much this year, but a major review was just published. 60% of vegans are B12 deficient because they're not regularly eating B12 fortified foods or taking B12 supplements every day or every week. So that means yet another year of horror story after horror story, one after another. Vegetarians even got a disease named after them: vegetarians' myelopathy. People eating plant-based diets must take vitamin B12. But anyway, back to beans. In terms of nutrient density, nutrients per calorie, are beans the most nutritious class of whole foods? Or is it fruit, nuts and seeds, vegetables, or whole grains? What should go on the base of a healthy eating pyramid? Beans, fruits, nuts, veggies, or grains? Definitely vegetables. But which are the healthiest ones? A major advance was made this year ranking vegetables. Graphs like this that I've shared over the years that compare the antioxidant power of foods were all based on very primitive methods, basically just measuring how much a food slows down an oxidation reaction between two chemicals in a machine. That was the best we had, but it required a leap of faith that what was happening in the test tube could be extrapolated to what might actually happen in living human tissue. This year, though, a landmark study was published, pitting 34 common vegetables against 8 different types of human cancers: breast cancer, brain tumors, kidney cancer, lung cancer, childhood brain tumors, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and stomach cancer. Let's look at breast cancer. I'll cover up the answers. What's being measured is tumor cell proliferation. Here's the control. You drip some water on a human breast tumor, and nothing happens. It's still powering away at 100% growth rate. And these 7 vegetables appear useless against breast cancer, no different than placebo. But these 6 cut the cancer growth rate in half, and these 5 at the end stop cancer growth completely, stop these tumor cells dead in their tracks. The take-home message number 1 from this new data is that we need to eat a variety of vegetables. Take radishes, for example, do nothing against pancreatic cancer. In fact, if anything, they may actually accelerate growth. But against stomach cancer, they completely eliminated tumor cell growth. On the other hand, orange bell peppers don't do much for stomach cancer, but can cut prostate cancer growth by more than 75%. So we need to eat a variety of vegetables because they each tend to target different cancers. If you're particularly concerned about a specific cancer, like if you have a strong family history of breast cancer, then you can narrow it down and really nail those 5 or 6 veggies every day that excel at targeting breast tissue. But otherwise, to fight against any kind of cancer, we've got to eat a portfolio of vegetables to cover all our bases. That doesn't mean some veggies aren't better than others. Some of these vegetables target multiple cancers at the same time. So using this groundbreaking new data, let's play Which is Healthier. Imagine you're standing in line at one of those custom made-to-order salad places where you get to choose your lettuce, choose your toppings, and then choose your dressing. Let's assume you don't have a strong family history of any particular cancer, and so aren't trying to hone in on avoiding one tumor over any other. First, let's choose our lettuce. Boston, endive, radicchio, romaine, or spinach? Which is healthier? Out of the 5, spinach is number 1 against breast cancer. Remember, the farther down, the better it is at slowing down these cancer cells. Number 1 against brain tumors. Number 1 against kidney cancer. Number 1 against lung cancer, and pediatric brain tumors. That's why we need to feed our kids spinach. Number 1 against pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and stomach cancer. Now, it's not number 1 overall. There are 16 vegetables more powerful at stopping stomach cancer growth than spinach, but out of those 5 salad greens, spinach wins out across the board against every cancer type tested. What if the salad place said they were out of spinach, though? Which comes in second out of the 4 left to choose from? For breast cancer, radicchio is number 2. Against brain tumors, radicchio. Kidney cancer, radicchio. Radicchio. Romaine, radicchio, radicchio, and radicchio. So overall, out of those choices for greens, radicchio is second healthiest. Back to the menu. Next, we get to choose 4 toppings. Now, there's a long line of people behind you, all staring at us to make our choice. We don't have time to ponder and pick the 4 absolute best, but we can at least make a guess as to roughly where on the graph they are. Yes or no? According to this amazing new data, do carrots slow down cancer cell growth rates more than 50%? Yes or no? The answer is no, 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 and no. So, shredded carrots aren't going to make our top toppings choice. What about shredded beets? Yes or no? Yes. Super yes. Brain tumor? Just beat it. Kidney cancer is a no, close to 50%, but not quite there. But then yes, 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 yes. So, overall, yes for beets. Are we putting cucumber on our salad? As tasty as they may be, no. For most cancers, it suppressed tumor cell growth less than 50%. What about tomatoes? No tomatoes either. What about a potato? You can actually choose potatoes for your salad. Yes or no? No potatoes either. Wait a second, no iceberg lettuce, carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, potatoes? That's all people eat. That's the problem. Even people eating their vegetables aren't really eating their vegetables. The majority of veggies people commonly eat have little effect. Cutting to the chase. The line at the salad place is now out the door at this point. In this study, there was one clear winner, one vegetable that completely 100% stopped cancer growth in 7 out of the 8 tumor lines. One of the most important findings of the year. Which vegetable was it? Was it bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, fiddlehead ferns, garlic, kale, or red cabbage? Number 1 against breast cancer, garlic. Number 1 against brain tumors, garlic. Number 2 against kidney cancer, lung cancer, garlic. Childhood brain tumors, garlic. Pancreatic cancer, garlic. Prostate cancer, and stomach cancer, garlic. So might I suggest a garlicky salad dressing? But wait, is it just that garlic is toxic to all cells? Yes, it stops the growth of cancer cells, but maybe it stops the growth of healthy cells too. That wouldn't be good. They tested for that. The black bars are the cancer cells. The white bars are the normal cells. As you can see, garlic slams cancer cells, but doesn't touch normal cells. And the same thing with pretty much all the vegetables. They're selective. They go after the cancer cells, but leave the normal cells alone. Veggies are amazing. Now, if you didn't pick garlic and instead chose one of those others, you probably weren't far off. The 2 best families of vegetables for cancer prevention are the cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli, kale, cabbage, and the allium family vegetables, like garlic, onions, and leeks. Let me just run through this one last time to highlight this important concept. Starting from the beginning, cruciferous vegetables in green, allium family vegetables in yellow. So what I want you to notice is the clustering of colors over to the right side, which illustrates the power of these 2 superfood classes of vegetables, whether for breast cancer, brain cancer, kidney cancer, lung cancer, or brain cancer. Interestingly, you'll notice that bok choy is often the kind of odd one out, apparently the least healthy of the cruciferous vegetables. Pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and finally, stomach cancer. So, you know all those recipes that start with like garlic and onions, and then you throw in some greens? That is the way to eat. The researchers conclude the inclusion of cruciferous and allium family vegetables in the diet is essential for effective dietary-based chemopreventive or cancer-preventive strategies. The final step, the dressing. Which is more nutritious, a salad with an oil-free dressing or a salad with an oil-based dressing? And the answer is not fat-free, but fat-filled. What? Why? Because many of the phytonutrients in salad are fat-soluble, and so our body needs fat to absorb them. The bioavailability of nutrients is higher when you take in fat. Check this out. Here's the amount of these nutrients that can be measured in our bloodstream over the course of 10 hours after we eat a salad with fatty dressing. This is how much we get from reduced fat dressing with the open circles, and at the bottom, the triangles. is the amount of nutrition we absorb from a fat-free salad. Same salad, but we absorb essentially nada, zero. Why did we even eat it to begin with? Now, oil is not good for you. It's basically just a lot of empty calories. The healthiest way to eat fat is from whole foods, like nuts and seeds. So a dressing made with tahini, which is just ground sesame seeds, or a creamy dressing you can whip up by blending nuts and cashews on your own. These are better ways to absorb all that nutrition in our salads. Or we can use a fat-free dressing and just throw some nuts and seeds on top. My family's favorite is freshly toasted walnuts. Just 5 walnut halves is all the fat you need to get at those fat-soluble nutrients in our greens. Similarly, this is all the lycopene we absorb from salsa, that great red phytonutrient that protects against cancer. Why so little? Salsa is packed with lycopene, but because salsa is a fat-free food, we absorb very little. But this is how much we absorb if we add some avocado to that salsa. Again, the fat helps suck up the nutrition, and adding a whole avocado in this study worked just as well as adding half of one. In fact, just 1/4 of an avocado is probably all the fat we need to add to salsa or salad to maximize absorption. Okay, here's another fascinating study. Published last year in the Journal of Biomedical Optics and comes straight out of science fiction. They used an argon laser to measure, in real time, the levels of antioxidants in people's bodies. Antioxidant substances in living human skin. We know that eating fruits and vegetables boosts our antioxidant levels, while stress, on the other hand, eats at our stores of antioxidants, causing our levels to drop. But how fast does this all happen? What are the dynamics of it? We didn't know until this study. And while they were taking measurements, they had people take diaries, when they were sick, tired, eating tomato sauce, or up partying all night. And so they came up with graphs like this, tracking antioxidant levels and linking them to life events. So here, for example, things are going fine, then stress at work, more fruits and veggies, then not getting enough sleep, and then more fruits and veggie consumption again, then gets a bad cold. Drops them way down before slowly starting to recover. Their most important finding was that antioxidant levels can plummet within 2 hours of a stressful event. You get stuck in traffic, agitated, breathing in car exhaust, and your body starts using up antioxidant stores left and right. Takes 2 hours to lose, and can take up to 3 days to get our levels back up again. So the take-home message is that especially when we're sick, stressed, tired, we need to be soaking our bodies with antioxidants, which means fruits and vegetables at every meal and snack, and sipping green tea all day long. They've actually used this same laser technology to tightly correlate the development of wrinkles with low antioxidant levels in the skin. So even if you don't care what's going on inside your body, you should eat healthy for the outside too. This wasn't the only new use of laser technology last year. Detection of fecal residue on poultry carcasses by laser imaging. See, in slaughter plants, birds are gutted by a metal hook that often rips the intestines, so commonly the skin on chicken gets contaminated by these ruptures of the digestive tract during the evisceration process, which can expel what they call internal content. Internal content that can be picked up by laser scanning. So what percentage of retail chicken carcasses are contaminated with fecal matter? 92%. 9 chickens out of 10. At least with pigs and cows, we don't eat the outside of them, but that's one of the problems with eating chickens and fish. By eating the animal's skin itself, we're more likely to be exposed to fecal bacteria. Don't try this at home. That's why you have to cook the crap out of them, literally. But 70 years ago, a Swedish researcher first reported that feeding mice roasted horse muscles caused cancer. This cancer-producing substance has since been identified. Heterocyclic amines are the carcinogenic chemicals formed from the cooking of muscles, such as beef, pork, poultry, and fish, created when the building blocks of muscles react to high heat, roasting, frying, grilling, barbecuing. 17 different such carcinogens have so far been discovered in cooked meats, and the National Cancer Institute goes on to explain how people eating meat well done appear to have higher cancer risk than those eating meat cooked rare. So we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't, because we're not supposed to cook meat rare anymore because of the risk of food poisoning. So it's like we can take our pick, cancer or E. coli. The reason we're so concerned these days about these cooked meat carcinogens is that last year we learned that humans are much more susceptible than we thought. The Breyer research was done on rats, and rodents have this uncanny ability to detoxify 99% of the heterocyclic amines we stuff down their throats. But last year we discovered that the human liver can only detoxify 50% of the carcinogens we get from eating cooked chicken, for example. So instead of 1% getting into our system, based on rat studies, we now know 50% gets into our bloodstream. So now we're 50 times more concerned. Breast cancer has been the traditional target of these cooked meat carcinogens, but now there's also prostate, stomach, colon, and kidney cancer concerns as well. We also knew these cooked muscle chemicals are neurotoxic, and so last year researchers looked into meat consumption and essential tremor, which is one of the most common neurological conditions in the world. These tremors can start as early as our 40s, and usually starts in the hands, but can spread to the rest of the body and become quite debilitating. And we never knew what caused it, but now, at least for men, we seem to have a lead. Men eating the most meat in this study had more than 20 times the odds of having this tremor. Just to illustrate how dramatic a 20-fold increase is, the odds of a pack-a-day smoker getting lung cancer after 20 years is only 13 times that of non-smokers. So for meat and tremor, it comes out to be 6% increased risk for every 10 grams of meat consumed daily. That's like one strip of bacon. That means if we eat the equivalent of a chicken breast a day, we may double our risk of developing a tremor for the rest of our lives. In the U.S., though, children have the highest levels of these carcinogens in their bodies, and these chemicals may play a role in our childhood asthma epidemic as well. Two things seem to do it: meat intake and the presence of smokers in the home. So parents need to be educated to take certain precautions: no indoor smoking, and reducing their children's intake of grilled and smoked meat so as to decrease their exposure to these carcinogens. Now, warnings about meat in general is kind of vague, though. Where are these carcinogens found most? Flame-broiled burger or fried? Pan-fried chicken, lamb chop, pork chop, or grilled salmon? Salmon is bad, but for the first time it seems chicken beats out fish for carcinogenic contamination. Chickens aren't the only things roasted, though. What about coffee beans? Measured for the first time this year, but they don't have any muscles, so they only contributed very insignificant quantities. And an earlier study found zero mutagenicity from frying veggie burgers. Again, they're not muscle meat. The carcinogen is created from the muscle itself. In fact, it's been detected in roasted human muscle too, though I don't know why they even did that study. OK, so it really is the chicken. But which chicken? Researchers last year tested the levels of carcinogenic heterocyclic amines in chicken samples from McDonald's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, Chili's, TGI Fridays, Outback Steakhouse, and Applebee's. Which was worse? You tell me. 100 samples of chicken were taken, and every single one of the 100 was contaminated. But which one took the cancer cake? Applebee's has a grilled chicken salad. Burger King and Chick-fil-A both have chicken sandwiches. Chili's has a guiltless chicken platter. Mickey D's has a grilled chicken salad. Outback, a barbecued chicken, and TGI Fridays, a grilled chicken salad. Which is worse? It was that chicken salad from Fridays. The researchers conclude simple steps, such as reducing or avoiding the consumption of grilled chicken products, can be encouraged as a strategy to reduce one's total intake of carcinogenic or mutagenic toxins. To avoid the cancer or E. coli conundrum, we could ask a restaurant to instead steam or boil our meat, but they'd still have to handle it correctly. You know how bathrooms in restaurants have this sign saying that employees have to wash their hands? Well, researchers at Iowa State University sent trained observers to 16 restaurants in the Midwest to count how often and how well restaurant employees washed their hands as they prepared our food. How did they do? Now note they measured hand-washing compliance with the U.S. Food Code guidelines, which are pretty strict, like you're supposed to wash your hands every single time you switch from preparing one food to another, like from meat to veggies, so it's hard to score 100%. At the same time, they had a researcher sitting there watching them with a clipboard the whole time. So are you so cynical that you think they complied less than 20% of the time? 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80? Any optimists for 80 to 100? Well, it wasn't 80 to 100% of the time, or 60 to 80, or even 40 to 60. Thus, there was 0% compliance with food code recommendations for hand-washing procedures. What if we do it ourselves, though? From the meat counter straight home in a biohazard suit to place the meat directly into boiling water, assuring absolutely no cross-contamination in the kitchen. Even if it's fish, the one animal more contaminated than chicken, would we finally be out of the woods? Fact or fiction? You can't get food poisoning from properly cooked and handled fish. Now, it's easy to get food poisoning eating raw seafood. About 85% of fish is contaminated with fecal bacteria, thanks to gut waste exposed during fish evisceration. We can get cholera from raw oysters. In fact, there was a newly emerging strain reported last year in the United States. Or one can get tapeworms from sushi and other delights and parasites, such as brain worms, or eye worms — I'll spare you a photo of that one — or necrotizing infections reported this year from oysters, shellfish, other seafood, the so-called flesh-eating bacteria. Immediate limb amputations were performed, but still 37% of the victims died. But what if you cook out the crap? Fish don't get mad cow disease, which is caused by a pathogen that can survive even incineration at temperatures hot enough to melt lead. So are we safe if it's cooked? And this is only in terms of food poisoning, right? We're not talking right now about long-term effects of eating the mercury or PCBs. In terms of acute illness only, as long as you cook it, is it safe, or not necessarily? It turns out some of the most common causes of fish-borne food poisoning are not destroyed by cooking. 50,000 people get poisoned every year from a neurotoxin in tropical fish like red snapper, sea bass, grouper, who eat fish who eat toxic algae. Can cause all sorts of weird reactions, like hot feels like cold, and cold then feels like hot. And after fish consumption, the toxin itself can be sexually transmitted and cause weeks of painful genital symptoms. So even if we don't eat fish, and our non-vegetarian lover assures us they properly handled and cooked their fish, we may not be safe. Then there are all sorts of really rare fish toxins that can cause our muscles to break down. Guy ate some salmon, went to bed. When he woke up, he could hardly stand or hold a cup of coffee. Not being able to walk is one thing, but no coffee? The key point: there are lots of toxins in fish, and they're not affected by cooking. Nobody in their right mind would eat poisonous pufferfish, but what if it's mislabeled as monkfish, causing these two recent cases of tetrodotoxin in Chicago? Then there's scombroid poisoning. A woman eats some mackerel at a restaurant and just collapses. When fish starts spoiling, toxins can be released, even when the fish still tastes and smells fine, and can cause what may actually be the most common cause of food poisoning from fish. See, when flesh decomposes, it releases chemicals that can have a toxic effect, like putrescine and cadaverine, which is the new corpse smell that they use to train cadaver-sniffing dogs. But it's not just fish. When all carcasses rot, you get these decaying flesh compounds, including spermine, actually, which is what gives semen its characteristic odor. But it really depends just what kind of bacteria are involved in the putrefaction process. OK, that's kind of gross, so let's move on to the USDA parasite game. Every year or so, the U.S. Department of Agriculture tests retail meat to see how infested the flesh of farmed animals are. It's up to you to guess just how infested: greater than 50% or less than 50%. First up, the detection of Sarcocystis parasites in retail U.S. beef. This is what they look like in the meat, and this is it sliced through in a microscope. So what do you think? Greater than 50% of U.S. retail meat samples infested with this parasite, or less than 50%? Well, they fed beef to dogs, and the bad news is that parasites were excreted by nearly every dog fed beef samples originating in the United States, suggesting near universal bovine infection. So they assumed the prevalence in the U.S. beef supply was around 95%, so definitely greater than 50%. The good news is that the particular strain they found only seems to infect dogs. Next up, lamb chops. The prevalence of the parasite toxoplasma in lambs destined for human consumption in the USA. USDA researchers obtained the hearts of 383 lambs on the day of killing. So for those who think the USDA doesn't have a heart, wrong. They've got 383. What do you think they found? Greater than 50% infested, or less than 50%? The good news is, it was less than half. Only about 1 in 6 U.S. lambs are actively infected. The bad news is that 10% of Americans are currently infected with this brain parasite. That means odds are we all know people who have a battle going on inside their skulls between their immune system and these toxoplasma brain parasites, which have been linked to schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and Parkinson's, but most people's immune systems are able to keep them at bay. Should our immune systems start to seriously slip, though, they can infect our eyeballs. Here's a close-up of the back of someone's infected eye. This is what it looks like in the brains of an adult, and this is what these parasites can do to the brains of our children. No one, but particularly pregnant women, should eat undercooked meat. In fact, pregnant women in particular may want to stay away from all meat. In the first recorded volume of my latest in nutrition series back in 2007, we learned that meat is so packed with sex steroid hormones that when pregnant women eat meat, it may affect the development of their son's genital organs while still in the womb, such that when they grow up, they have decreased fertility. When moms eat meat during pregnancy, it may alter a man's testicular development in utero and adversely affect his reproductive capacity. But in this study, they just looked at beef, and we know that all meat has these hormones, and they only looked at the fertility of the next generation. So in effect, this study showed eating meat may lead to fewer grandchildren, but what about your own fertility? Is there a direct effect of meat consumption on fertility in women? Fact or fiction? Fact. And not just any study, but the famous Harvard Nurses study, which followed 18,000 women trying to get pregnant for 8 years and measured what they ate. They found that meat intake was indeed associated with infertility. Adding just a single serving of meat per day was associated with a 30% greater risk of anovulatory infertility, meaning the meat consumption appeared to interfere with ovulation. And this increased risk was due mostly to the intake of poultry. To break it down, eat a single serving of any meat, and you increase your infertility risk 30%. Red meat increases infertility risk 40%. But just a single serving of chicken, half a chicken breast a day, and women increase their infertility risk more than 50%, worse than bacon and hot dogs. Now, while animal protein was associated with increased risk of infertility, consuming protein from vegetable sources appeared to have the opposite effect, protecting, improving fertility. The researchers aren't sure why, but they think it might have something to do with the fact that animal protein intake increases the levels of a growth hormone called IGF-1, which has been linked not only to infertility, but to cancer, whereas eating veggie protein doesn't seem to have that adverse effect. In summary, they concluded that replacing animal sources of protein, particularly chicken, with vegetable sources of protein, like beans, may reduce the risk of infertility because of anovulation, or failure to ovulate. What about soybeans, though? The phytoestrogens in soy protect against cancer, both men and women, but might they decrease male fertility? Fox News thinks so, and they're fair and balanced. Fact or fiction? Fiction, and it's interesting why. The study did find that soy decreased sperm concentration, but did not significantly affect the sperm count itself. How can you have the same number of sperm, but a lower concentration? Because of a larger ejaculate volume. Soy appears to stimulate the prostate gland to produce a larger load of ejaculate fluid, but the actual number of sperm remains the same. And before we leave the topic, just as the iron requirements in menstruating women are higher than men, because some iron is lost every month in the menstrual flow, the zinc requirements in men are higher than women, because some zinc is lost in semen. Because the zinc in plant foods isn't absorbed as well as the zinc in flesh foods, a study published earlier this year found relatively low blood zinc levels in vegetarians. So anyone eating plant-based diets, men or women, should make sure they eat whole grains, beans, and nuts every day. But some men might just require more than others. Anyway, when you hear about environmental estrogens and male fertility, they're not talking about phytoestrogens, plant estrogens. They're talking about xenoestrogens, human-made chemicals like PCBs and pesticides that can have estrogenic effects. Where are they found the most? Fish. So it follows that the highest concentrations were found in urban fish eaters, followed by rural fish eaters, then urban vegetarians, with the lowest levels in rural vegetarians. Here are the sperm counts. Fish eaters versus vegetarians. Until the 20th century, the average age of puberty for girls was 16 or 17 years old. Now we're seeing significant numbers of girls starting to grow breasts before they're 8. The change has been so dramatic that the medical profession has had to keep changing its standards for what's currently pathological. The question is why. Is it just fiction that the increase in meat consumption has something to do with it? It appears to be fact. Based on Harvard data, girls who consumed more animal protein and less vegetable protein started their periods earlier. And it may not just be the hormone content in milk, meat, and eggs. A study of Korean children found that seafood and processed meat seem to be the main culprits, and they think it may be the endocrine-disrupting industrial chemicals that build up in the meat, fish in particular, like the dioxins and PCBs, that may be what's doing it. In a study of the links between fish consumption and infertility, levels of mercury were measured in vegans for the first time ever. They took hair samples from fish eaters and vegans, and this is what they found. 10 times more mercury contamination in the bodies of those who eat fish. In fact, if you take meat eaters and put them on a vegetarian diet, within just 3 months, the level of mercury in their bodies drops significantly, as well as other toxic heavy metal levels such as cadmium and lead. The one graph going up is magnesium. That's a good thing, actually. Whereas the more fish meals we eat per month, the higher our mercury levels climb. Just 1 or more fish meals a week, and 1 in 4 women exceed the EPA mercury safety limits. What's the big deal about mercury? Hundreds of thousands of American babies poisoned by their mother's fish consumption every single year. So much mercury coming from their mothers, measured straight from the umbilical cord blood, that they're born with brain damage. The resulting loss of intelligence that will plague these kids for the rest of their lives because their moms ate fish is estimated to cost our nation billions of dollars in lost productivity. We'd be billions of dollars more productive had these hundreds of thousands of kids been born smarter, if their moms had been smarter and not ate fish during pregnancy. Of course, you can't blame the mothers if they simply didn't know how much they were damaging the brains of their children with every bite. Mercury affects adults, too. Hair loss, memory loss, slurred speech. Here's a case report of a guy who ate tuna every day. Became so crazy he was thrown in a psych ward, couldn't even remember his name. It's not always this dramatic, though. Eating fish gives people subclinical neurobehavioral abnormalities, meaning you feel fine, you look fine, but if you're actually put to the test, the performance of those who eat fish is significantly worse on a bunch of tests, like how fast you can tap your fingers. Because mercury can be so dangerous, concern has been raised about amalgam fillings, the silvery cavity fillings in our teeth, because they do contain mercury and release a certain amount every day. Eating just a single can of tuna a week, though, is the equivalent to having how many mercury-containing fillings in our mouth, day in and day out? Less than 5, 5 to 10, 15, 20, 25, or more than 25. Now, keep in mind, you only have 32 teeth. 1 can a week is like living with 29 mercury-containing fillings. I don't know if you remember those old James Bond flicks, but basically that means looking like this. Now, to be fair, the mercury isn't just in fish. I mean, what do you think happens when we feed fish meal to other farmed animals? You can get the worst of both worlds, saturated fat with the industrial pollutants and methylmercury. OK, we know Nemo here is the worst out of all these options. But coming in second place, what do you think? Beef, butter, cheese, chicken, clams, or cream? Beef, butter, cheese, chicken. Almost as much toxic waste ingestion as from fish. Cheese comes in third, and because of that, not eating meat may not be enough. From the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the most prestigious nutrition journal on the planet, and considered one of the most influential scientific journals of the 20th century. Vegetarian diets and exposure to organochlorine pollutants, lead, and mercury. Because we continue to feed farm animals to other farm animals in the United States, slaughterhouse waste, blood, and manure, not only may mad cow prions be found in meat, but also there's these persistent lipophilic organic pollutants, or PLOP, such as pesticides and polychlorinated dibenzoyl P-dioxins. Animal products can also contain other neurotoxic substances like methylmercury and lead, because the industrial plop accumulates in fat tissues, the lead accumulates in bones, and so when farm animals are fed meat and bone meal, the toxins biomagnify, bioaccumulate up the food chain. Therefore, a predominance of plant foods in human diets, a plant-based diet, is an important step in lowering the body burden of harmful substances, but Veganism is defined as the practice of consuming only plant foods. Although a vegetarian lifestyle can lower the body burden of plop, mercury, and lead, such benefits can be undermined by the consumption of contaminated milk and egg products, because farm animals that are fed contaminated animal products produce contaminated animal products. What about marine oil supplements, like fish oil, packed with PCBs and insecticides? But which is worse, fish, seal, or shark oil capsules? Well, for PCBs, here's how much is in fish oil. But seals eat fish, and sharks eat seals. And then if we eat sharks or shark products, that puts us precipitously at the top of the food chain. What about pesticides, like DDT, which, though banned decades ago after Silent Spring came out, still found in the food chain, and will be for another few centuries? But no worries, if you trusted the chemical companies at the time, you'd know that DDT was good for us and our babies. Similarly, if you trust the tuna companies, tuna's safe for both mom and baby, and teddy bear. According to the Tuna Council, it's not just safe, but a healthy choice, providing a boost for your baby's brain. Same corporate playbook. The only difference is now they've learned to use nicer names for their companies, like Starkist or Bumblebee. Harder to get nursing mothers to trust you when your company's called Killing Salt Chemicals. Anyway, DDT was banned in 1972, and replaced by the pesticide Dieldrin, subsequently found to be so toxic it was outlawed in 1974. But it's still around, and appears to be why every single prospective study on dairy consumption in Parkinson's disease shows more milk means more Parkinson's. Though Dieldrin has been banned, humans continue to be exposed to the pesticide through contaminated dairy products and meats, due to the persistent accumulation of the pesticide in the environment. What else can these persistent pollutants do? Just from the research published over the last year, linked to endometriosis, fibrosis, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease mortality, and even gum disease. When pregnant women eat lots of animal products, because of these pollutants in animal fats, they risk having babies with smaller brains, lower intelligence, poorer attention span, and other cognitive impairments, and more pediatric respiratory infections. The more of the DDT metabolite DDE women are exposed to, the fatter their daughters may become when they grow up. Prenatal exposure may contribute to the obesity epidemic in women. Toxic waste exposure in the diet may even result in fewer men in the world. Pregnant women exposed to the most PCBs were 33% less likely to have a boy, and we're not sure if it's because PCBs damage male sperm or male embryos, but if having a baby girl is more important than your health, bulking up on PCBs may do it for you, and fish and other aquatic animals provide about 3/4 of human PCB dietary exposure. And the same with dioxins. Fish are the main culprits. The endocrine-disrupting industrial toxins in fish don't just affect our gonads, but other glands too, like getting thyroid disruption from the flame-retardant chemicals, which literally just settle out of the atmosphere, such that even fish who only swim around Antarctica are contaminated. Levels in the United States, though, are higher than anywhere else in the world. Researchers recently looked at U.S. retail salmon. And where do you think they found the most contamination? 6 choices: wild-caught with skin, wild-caught without skin, organically farmed salmon with or without skin, or conventionally farmed salmon with skin or without. The differences were really marginal, but the worst? Organic farmed salmon with skin. The wild-caught was least contaminated. Note also that it didn't really seem to matter much whether you took off the skin, which suggests that the toxins are actually concentrated into the fish muscle itself. PBDEs aren't the only new industrial toxin we're finding in fish. This year, researchers looked at the amount of polychlorinated naphthalenes in fat that was sucked out of the butts of New Yorkers in liposuction samples. Where in the diet was it coming from? Out of about 52 daily nanograms, 50 came from fish. What's the bottom line? Until safer and more renewable sources of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, plant-based sources, become more generally available, it would seem responsible for physicians to refrain from advocating that people should increase their intake through fish. But it is available now. There are a half-dozen brands of microalgae-derived DHA on the market now. I just show this one because I found it to be the cheapest. And it's 100% bioequivalent to what's in fish, a safe and convenient source, and less likely to go rancid than fish oil. As you can see on the little handout that came with this DVD, I recommend people take about 250 milligrams of microalgae-based DHA every day, which is about 5 times the average American intake. The contaminants I've been talking about are just from how polluted our planet has become. It's not like they're deliberately adding them to fish. But fish farmers do feed about 24 human antibiotics to their fish to keep them alive in such stressful, overcrowded environments. They also had to figure out a way to make grayish fish flesh look pink, which it is naturally when pulled out of the ocean. So the aquaculture industry feeds farmed fish artificial coloring. This is from the drug company Roche. Fish farmers get to pick out the color they want to dye their flesh like paint chips. The possible human health consequences? You can get a rare condition called gold dust retinopathy, as the coloring potentially crystallizes in the back of our eyeballs, which can lead to problems down the road. Cod liver oil that has been distilled to remove any industrial toxins and heavy metals. Still harmful, harmless, or helpful? Harmful, due to the toxic levels of vitamin A. In fact, so much it could damage our own liver, so not good for the cod's liver or ours. Last year, we learned that vitamin A and vitamin E supplements weren't just a waste of money, but we were actually paying to live, on average, a shorter life, whereas vitamin D supplements were shown to increase our lifespan. Let's keep filling in the alphabet. Vitamin C. Did scientists just discover that vitamin C supplements shorten our lifespan, don't do anything to our lifespan, or do vitamin C supplements enable us to live longer? No effect on lifespan, heart attack risk, or cancer risk. Just, apparently, a waste of money. What about iron? Shorter lifespan, same lifespan, or longer lifespan? Shorter lifespan. In fact, last summer an editorial in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute questioned whether cancer itself was a ferrotoxic disease, after a study showed that donating blood to rid oneself of excess iron appeared to cut cancer death rates in half. And with advanced neuroimaging techniques, iron accumulation in the brain is being increasingly linked to neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's. Now, if you're pregnant, you need enough blood for two, or if you have iron deficiency anemia, then you may need iron supplements. But for most people, taking extra iron is a bad idea, and in fact may be one reason there are higher cancer rates among meat-eaters, because they get heme iron, or blood iron, which our body's unable to downregulate the absorption of. So some vitamins may make us live longer, some may make us live a shorter life. What if you put them all together? Do people who take multivitamin supplements live longer or shorter lives than those who don't? All just seems to cancel out and give you expensive pee. Normally, I wouldn't spend so much time on one topic, but people are always asking me about supplements. Let's try 3 at a time. Lutein, a phytonutrient found in dark green leafy vegetables, lycopene, found in tomatoes, and selenium, a trace mineral found in nuts and whole grains. Not a single one of these 3 in pill form prevented cancer, and one of these 3 was just found to increase cancer risk when taken in pill form. Which one was worse than just a waste of money and actually seemed to cause cancer? It was the lutein pills. There's no getting around it. We just have to eat our greens, which has thousands of phytonutrients in it. Drug companies are never going to find the right combination, but they don't need to, because Mother Nature did it for us. As noted in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute last year, the first research on supplements back in 1982, and every study since, came to the same conclusion. Get our necessary plant-based nutrients from plants, from food. But what about Juice Plus, a supplement that claims to be the best of both worlds, all the best of fruits and vegetables extracted into pill form? Scam or no scam? Researchers found that it's basically just an overpriced vitamin supplement. What about glyconutrient supplements? With over $1 billion in accumulated sales, how could it possibly be a scam? Glyconutrient supplements are a total sham. In fact, they just settled a multi-million-dollar suit for false claim. All right, back to foods. Does soy consumption help ameliorate symptoms of menopause? Now, as with nearly everything in the field of nutrition, the evidence is mixed, so the question is always, what does the balance of evidence show? To bean or not to bean? Here's what the science shows. There's been a dozen studies on soy consumption and hot flashes, and one showed an increase in hot flashes, the one at the bottom. 3 didn't show soy did much of anything, but the remaining 8 studies showed a significant reduction in hot flashes. You can imagine what the headlines were like after the publication of that last study. Soy doesn't work. But you have to take the totality of evidence, and overall, soy really does seem to help. What about gluten, the protein in wheat which is used to make a number of mock meats like seitan. You may or may not have noticed a bunch of labels recently touting gluten-free foods and diets. Gluten, harmful, harmless, or good for you. For literally more than 99% of people, gluten, seitan, wheat protein is good for you. Excellent source of high-quality protein, the very staff of life. But only for 99.3% of people. 1 in every 133rd American has celiac disease, whether they know it or not, and for those people, gluten consumption can cause a range of symptoms, including chronic diarrhea, bloating, weight loss, and fatigue, all of which disappears when they're placed on a gluten-free diet. For the other 132 out of 133 people, though, gluten is fine. If you do have any of those symptoms, though, you should get tested for the disease. It's a simple blood test. The standard intestinal biopsy may not be necessary, and in fact, since testing is getting so simple, there's consideration of just screening all kids for it to pick up those rare celiac cases, since if you do have it but don't know it, you may live a significantly shorter lifespan. So get tested if you're concerned. Harmful, harmless, or helpful? Raw mushrooms. I got an email from someone last year saying that Dr. Joel Fuhrman told his patients to stop eating raw mushrooms out of fear of a natural toxin in regular white mushrooms called agaritine, which is essentially destroyed by cooking. Now, I get crazy emails all the time about doctors spouting all sorts of nonsense, but I have tremendous respect for Dr. Fuhrman, so I took it seriously enough to research the topic, and what do you think I found? Raw mushrooms, harmful, harmless, or helpful? Has Fuhrman just drank one too many of his blended salads, or is he really on to something? He's right. Mushrooms have all sorts of amazing health benefits, but eat them cooked. Any other natural toxins to consider? Well, potatoes produce these natural insecticide compounds called glycoalkaloids to keep potato beetles from nibbling on them. They're not stupid. So, bad for beetles, though, but what about us? Well, a number of dietary risk assessments have been published lately, and although these glycoalkaloids are thought to be the most highly consumed natural toxin in North America, people have been growing potatoes for 7,000 years, currently the 4th largest food crop in the world. Major review just published. What do you think? Now, this is for a baked potato, not fried, no butter, no cheese, no sour cream, no salt. Just a plain baked potato. Bad, neither, or good? Well, we already know they're not good from before, but true safety or false sense of security? Asking the question of vital importance, are potato glycoalkaloids dangerous to humans? This discussion suggests they are indeed toxic, and this problem should no longer be ignored. OK, then. What about sweet potatoes? Bad, or good? They're not good, they're great. Ranked as one of the top 10 healthiest foods on the planet by the Mayo Clinic. So, sweet potatoes, good; white potatoes, bad. If you insist on continuing to eat white potatoes, peel them, as that removes about 3/4 of the toxins. What about white rice? Came free with the broccoli and garlic sauce you just ordered? Better than nothing? And the answer is no. Put some brown rice in your rice cooker, and it will be done by the time the delivery person arrives. If brown rice is so good for you, and white rice is pretty much a waste of calories, why not just eat rice bran, which is part of what is taken away from brown rice to make white rice? Bad idea? Doesn't matter either way, or great idea, right? You get all the good stuff concentrated together. Unfortunately, you also get the bad stuff concentrated together as well. Plants grown in waterlogged soil can absorb arsenic found naturally in the environment, and it concentrates in the bran. Does that mean we shouldn't eat brown rice? No, but if you eat a lot of rice, I would encourage you to buy U.S.-grown rice, as it tends to have lower arsenic levels than Asian or European-grown rice. Arsenic is bad stuff, no argument. But most of the arsenic in the American diet comes not from rice. More than 3/4 comes from animal products: beef, milk, pork, hot dogs, eggs, and chicken. Purdue is the most contaminated. 1 bucket of American fast food chicken may exceed the EPA safety limit for arsenic in a glass of drinking water by 2,000%. How did it get there? The poultry industry fed it to them. 2 million pounds of arsenic compounds are fed to chickens every year in the United States, and about 85 tons fed to pigs. Here's the list of arsenic-containing feed additives approved by the FDA. But why would the poultry industry do that? Why do we feed millions of pounds of arsenic compounds to chickens every year? Here's one of the chemical company ads: livestock and profits growing healthy together. It's approved by the FDA to increase the rate of weight gain. When you cram tens of thousands of birds into filthy football field-sized sheds to lie beak to beak in their own waste, they become so heavily infested with internal parasites that adding arsenic to the feed to poison the bugs can result in a dramatic increase in growth rates. It's also approved for use to improve pigmentation. Arsenic can give the carcass a pinkish tinge, which consumers prefer. So the industry gets more profit, the consumers get more pink. What's the downside? Landmark review in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences last year out of Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. What are the public health consequences of extra dietary arsenic? Extra cancer risk, heart disease, diabetes, neuropathy, and neurocognitive deficits in children. Not something to crow about. If one compares chicken to veggie chicken, we can see that the same amount of chicken has about twice the calories, 4 times the fat, infinitely more saturated fat and cholesterol, pretty much same sodium and protein, only about 1/3 of the iron, and no fiber. But what chicken lacks in fiber, it makes up for in mutagenic toxins and arsenic. Speaking of toxic metallic elements, there continues to be growing concern about aluminum exposure and the development of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. But how are we exposed to aluminum? This is how much we get cooking acidic foods like tomato sauce in an aluminum pot for an hour. Aluminum is also added to childhood vaccines as an immune irritant to improve efficacy, but it's come under fire from some parenting groups. This is how much you get smoking a pack of cigarettes, and this is how much you get if you use aluminum-containing antiperspirants. but researchers just found a food item that blows these other sources away. What do you think it is? Is it Brussels sprouts? Many of you wish it were Brussels sprouts. Cheese, chicken, eggs, fish, or shellfish. The highest natural levels of aluminum are found in shellfish, but the highest levels overall is in cheese. Why? Just like the poultry industry adds arsenic to chicken, the dairy industry adds aluminum to cheese, the #1 source of aluminum in the diet. Why would they do that? The aluminum salts produce a smooth, uniform film around each fat droplet to prevent something called fat bleeding, and to give the cheese a softer texture and desirable slicing properties. So if you're a parent worrying about the aluminum in vaccines, every grilled cheese sandwich you give to your kids is like injecting them with a dozen aluminum-containing vaccines. You know the answer to this question, white rice versus brown rice, but what about the answer to this question, brown rice versus red rice? What the heck, brown versus red versus black rice? Which is healthier? And the winner is red rice. That was a surprise. I'd been using black, but I just switched to red. 10 times more antioxidants than brown rice. The phytonutrients in these pigmented strains of rice may protect against heart disease, inhibit the growth of human cancer cells, and even help protect against asthma and hay fever. So I encourage folks to make the switch. These phytonutrients are wonderful, but is there a concern that our bodies can only absorb a certain amount of antioxidants at one time, so we should spread out our fruit and vegetable consumption? Like the law of diminishing returns. Maybe we absorb only the phytonutrients in that first cup of strawberries, but if you eat 2 cups at one sitting, maybe absorption kind of plateaus, so maybe it's better to eat 1 cup now and the second in a few hours. We finally have some data. Is this fact or fiction? Fiction. Here's about 1, 2, and 4 cup strawberry treatments, and the more you eat, the more you benefit, with no end in sight. But what if we eat our strawberries with cream? In 2007, we learned that milk blocks the absorption of the phytonutrients in chocolate. In 2008, we learned that milk totally blocks the beneficial effects of the phytonutrients in tea. Might as well just be drinking water. What if we eat dairy at the same meal with powerful antioxidant fruits and vegetables like berries? We didn't know until this year. Does dairy block berry nutrition, or not? Let's find out. Ellagic acid is considered one of the key phytonutrients in berries, which, for example, may play a role in the ability of berries to prevent age-related cognitive decline. This is how much ellagic acid is absorbed into our bloodstream when we drink blackberry juice made with water at half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours after consumption. Compare that to how much we absorb when we drink the same amount of berry juice with skim milk added. 0. Nothing. The absorption completely blocked. Fact. And similar results were found this year with blueberries as well. Major review on diet and acne this year in the International Journal of Dermatology. Acne is described as a disease of Western civilization, a near universal disease affecting up to 95% of teens and about half of adults here in the United States. But if you go to places that still eat more traditional diets, out of over 1,000 people studied, not one single case of acne. Dairy appears to play the major role. The steroid hormones in milk are at high enough concentrations that it may affect our oil-producing pores. But if there are that many hormones in milk, then acne would seem to be the least of our worries. From the Journal of the German Society of Dermatology this year: milk consumption, aggravating factor not only of acne, but a promoter of chronic disease in general. Yes, the potential risks of cow's milk consumption include affecting the skin, but I'm less concerned in the so-called acne epidemic than I am about the epidemic of dementia, and cancer, and heart disease, though premature puberty and autoimmune diseases are serious issues as well. Which has the highest hormone levels, though? Fat-free milk, reduced fat milk, whole milk, or buttermilk? Here's the study, and buttermilk had the most hormones. But who drinks buttermilk? Which is number 2 after buttermilk? Is it skim, 2%, or whole milk? The number 2 most hormone-packed milk is skim milk. Why are we concerned? Breast cancer, for one thing, all part of the soup of cancer-causing suspects scientists continue to find in milk. Skim milk second only to buttermilk in terms of the levels of about a dozen steroid hormones recently found in retail milk. Part of the reason is what we've done to dairy cows. Through dietary and genetic manipulation, we're now able to force cows to lactate even in the late stages of pregnancy. And since we have to keep them constantly impregnated to produce milk, that's good for the industry, but right at the end of the 3rd trimester, the hormone levels really skyrocket, and that's what we end up drinking. Milk was designed by nature to make things grow like crazy. That's why it's good for babies, but bad for tumors. Good for baby cows, but bad for adult people who may have tiny microscopic breast or prostate tumors, which we don't want growing so fast. In a study of 140,000 men, 35 grams of dairy protein increased the risk of developing high-grade prostate cancer by 76%. So that's like 2% increased risk for every gram of milk protein. So like a cup of cottage cheese a day could increase one's risk by about 50%. So where do we go from here? Here's what the science says. Our deeply rooted beliefs about the wholesomeness of milk and dairy products should be reconsidered. We are just beginning to reassess the biological effects of milk and dairy products as human foodstuffs. Human beings are the only species on Earth that, from the beginning of infancy into adulthood, are subjected to this external hormonal manipulation. Milk developed over the course of mammalian evolution only to be consumed during infancy. The consumption of cow's milk in humans interferes with the sensitive endocrine regulatory network from the fetal period into old age. While dairy is being reevaluated as human food, in the very least, given the tumor-promoting effect of IGF-1 insulin-like growth factor 1, from dairy, patients with tumorous disease should restrict consumption of milk and milk protein. Unfortunately, we don't know if we have a tumor until it gets big enough to be picked up. The same applies to patients with coronary heart disease, #1 killer in the United States, and those with a family history of neurodegenerative disease. Milk's already been identified as an aggravating factor in the acne epidemic, but it is even more important that excessive milk consumption can promote diseases commonly associated with a Western lifestyle. But if we don't drink milk, what happens to our bones? Well, a study published this year answered that question, comparing the bone mineral density of long-term vegans to omnivores. Buddhist nuns, vegan for up to 72 years, versus same age, same height, same weight, same exercise, omnivorous women who, because of their dairy consumption, ended up getting about twice as much calcium per day as the vegans. Who had stronger bones? 3 choices: vegans stronger, omnis stronger, or both the same. Despite the vastly different calcium intakes, same bone density. What's the latest on eggs? Well, the fallout from the Harvard physician study continues, which, as I covered last year, showed that eating just a single egg a day or more significantly shortens one's lifespan. More egg on the medical profession's face, this editorial read in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Better egg on our face than having it go down our gullet. Dr. David Spence is director of the Stroke Prevention Atherosclerosis Research Centre in Ontario, one of the world's leading stroke experts. He ruffled a few feathers this year when he said that, based on the latest research, you can eat all the eggs you want, if you're dying from a terminal illness. Then it doesn't matter. Now, the egg industry's nutritionists disagreed, to which Dr. Spence replied, "Who would you want to believe, the dietitian who works for the egg farmers of Canada, or a doctor who has spent 30 years trying to prevent strokes? I don't have any interest in this at all, but they certainly do. They are selling eggs. I am selling stroke prevention." Since the Harvard physician study results were published, egg consumption has also been linked to heart failure, along with dairy, as well as diabetes in both men and women. A single egg a day or more. The #1 cause of death in the United States, however, is heart disease. Late last year, a landmark review was published on the cause of our #1 killer by Dr. William Clifford Roberts. First of all, who is this guy? The head of Baylor's Cardiovascular Institute, he's authored a mere 1,387 scientific publications, written more than a dozen textbooks on cardiology, and has been the editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Cardiology for 25 years. Well then, what is the cause of atherosclerosis? Well, first of all, doesn't he mean causes, though? I mean, there's lots of things that increase our risk of heart disease: hypertension, diabetes, obesity, inactivity, cigarette smoking. None of that matters, he says, unless we have high cholesterol. All those things can speed the buildup of plaque in our arteries, but if our cholesterol level is low enough, there's nothing our body can build the plaque with. According to Dr. Roberts, atherosclerosis simply does not occur if elevated cholesterol is not present, regardless of how high our blood pressure is, our blood sugars, no matter how obese, how inactive, or how many cigarettes we smoke. The plaque that builds up in our arteries, choking off blood flow to our heart, to our brain, to the other arteries in our body, is made out of cholesterol. If you don't have enough bricks and mortar to build a dam choking off a river, the dam will not be built. Unless we have elevated cholesterol levels, there simply isn't enough substrate to form these plaques throughout our arteries to trigger strokes, heart attacks, kill us, make us impotent, though not necessarily in that order. If cholesterol is the cause of atherosclerosis, how low does one's cholesterol have to be to become heart attack proof? Ideally, our bad cholesterol, LDL, should be under 70. If such a goal was created, the great scourge of the Western world would be essentially eliminated. There are only two ways, he says, to get it down that low: put 100 million people on a lifetime of high-dose statin drugs starting in one's 20s, or be what he calls a pure vegetarian fruit eater, which is just what he calls those eating whole foods vegan diets. Now, if we put everyone on drugs, then thousands of people would suffer side effects. So, of course, a vegan diet is the least expensive and safest means of achieving the plaque-preventing LDL goal, but few in the Western world are willing to live on the herbivore diet. In his words in a recent interview, the best way to prevent heart disease is to be a non-flesh eater, a non-saturated fat eater. Because humans get atherosclerosis, and atherosclerosis is a disease only of herbivores, he reasons, humans also must be herbivores. The cause of our #1 killer is elevated cholesterol. So, according to probably the most renowned cardiovascular pathologist in the world, that means the cause of our #1 killer is not eating vegan. Just like with diabetes, the same diet that prevents heart disease can be used not just to treat it, but to reverse it. Next year will be the 20th anniversary of Dean Ornish's landmark research showing that without drugs, a near-vegan diet could reverse atherosclerosis, dissolve the plaque, open up the arteries. Well, if that's the case, can't we just eat whatever we want, and then just start eating vegan after our first heart attack to dissolve the plaque away? Unfortunately, there's a little something called sudden cardiac death. Half of those that die of heart disease just drop dead, so our first heart attack may indeed be our last, but not in the way we were hoping. So what's Ornish up to these days? Well, he's still reversing heart disease, nearly 3/4 of patients angina-free, without drugs or surgery. But now that he's conquered the #1 killer, he's moved on to trying to reverse killer #2, cancer. PSA levels are typically what's used to follow the progression of prostate cancer. In the standard diet group, they got worse. In the vegan diet group, they got better. No surgery, no chemotherapy, no radiation. They just started getting better. Here's an MR spectrograph showing the drop in cancer activity on the plant-based diet. To figure out what was going on, they took blood from each group and dripped their blood on prostate cancer cells in a petri dish to see what effect the dietary change had. The blood of the standard diet patients did reduce the cancer cell growth rates by about 10%. Their bodies, their immune systems, were doing the best that they could to beat back the cancer. The blood of people on a vegan diet, though, knocked the cancer growth down 70%. Eating a plant-based diet made their bloodstream 8 times less hospitable to cancer. Now, this is after a year. Subsequent studies have shown that one can see a significant cancer-fighting effect after just 2 weeks on a plant-based diet with exercise. What's happening, it seems, is that the vegan diet reprogrammed gene expression within the prostate gland itself. Ornish took biopsies before and after the dietary change, and you can see the subtle shift in gene regulation from more red to more green. The green denotes genes that are being downregulated under the lifestyle changes. Before and after. Ornish's 2-year follow-up was just published last year. A significant number of the standard diet group were forced to go into surgery for what's called a radical prostatectomy, which often leads to urinary incontinence and impotence in 60% of men coming out of surgery. But not a single one of the men on the plant-based diet had to go to surgery. Does it have to be all or nothing, though? Researchers at University of Texas followed a few hundred men after they had their prostates removed for cancer, and split them into a high saturated fat group and a low saturated fat group, and asked the simple question, does just cutting down on meat improve cancer-free survival? Now, this was Texas, so that means comparing those that ate the equivalent of 3/4 of a bucket of fried chicken's worth of saturated fat to those eating half a bucket's worth a day. The question is, did that modest difference in meat consumption significantly improve cancer-free survival, or do you really have to cut out all meat to see a significant effect? This is how long men lived before their cancer came back, eating that much saturated fat a day. Those who ate less saturated fat got this far out before their cancer returned. Less than 20 months versus more than 40 months. That's the difference even a quarter bucket of chicken's worth of saturated fat may make if we have cancer. Obviously, cutting out all saturated animal fat is better, but it's not all or nothing. Flax seeds have also been shown to slow prostate cancer, but which is healthier? Chia or flax? Well, there are 3 reasons why people eat flax: the cardioprotective omega-3s, the cholesterol-lowering soluble fiber, and cancer-fighting lignans. Compared to chia seeds, flax has more omega-3s, but to my surprise, chia has significantly more fiber, which makes Chia Obama very happy. Looks like lignans are going to be the decider. Flax has always been considered so amazing because it has about 100 times more cancer-fighting lignans than any plant in the world, until, evidently, chia seeds were tested. According to the website of Better Than Flax, a NutriBrand chia seeds, chia has 25 times more lignans than flax. That's incredible. No, really, that's incredible. I called them up, challenged them on it, and it turns out they lied. Flax is healthier. I like to end these talks with my top pick for Study of the Year, but before I get to the top finalist, I thought I might briefly share some contenders for last place. For example, money was spent sniffing the effect of mugwort mushrooms on the urine odor of aged mice. Or how about this one? How to use fish guts for laundry detergent. Taxpayers paid for an investigation of the structure of tomatoes by means of quantitative nuclear MRIs. We now know, ladies and gentlemen, what the inside of a tomato looks like. The effects of a horse meat-based Atkins diet on rats was studied, as well as how to improve the gelling properties of ground lizardfish, because you know there's nothing worse than runny lizardfish jello. What are the sensory and color changes in warty venous flesh during marination? Because if the color's off or something, forget it. The meat industry continues to try to get rid of their byproducts. You've heard of soy infant formula, dairy infant formula. How about chicken-based formula for babies? Don't worry, the meat is blenderized so as to be easily sucked through a rubber nipple. See, I don't just read journals like Plantamedica and Phytomedicine. I read the Journal of Muscle Foods, not foods for muscles, mind you, but foods made out of muscles. What might one find in a nutrition journal of meat? Articles about how to starve bunnies, of course. Starved rabbits have the highest ripe meat ratio, and therefore the best barbecued bunny can be obtained by withholding food. On a lighter note, from a Norwegian medical journal, Flatophonia, the art of the musical anus, is reviewed. The man could blow out candles from yards away, a true fartiste. You'll notice in the 13th edition of this book, published in 1727, was not only reviewed by the College of Physicians, but approved by several ladies of quality. All right, let me close out with one final round. First, a bit of background. Each one of us has 46 strands of DNA in our cells coiled into chromosomes. At the tips of each chromosome, at the end of each DNA strand, there's a cap, like the tip of a shoelace, which keeps our DNA from unraveling and fraying. That cap is called a telomere. Every time our cells divide, though, a bit of that cap is lost, and when it's completely gone, the cell stops dividing or dies. So, telomeres have been thought of as kind of our life fuse. They start shortening as soon as we're born, and when they're gone, we're gone. In fact, forensic scientists can take DNA from a blood stain and tell you how old the person was based on how long the telomeres are. The thought is, if we can slow down this ticking clock, slow down this shortening, we may be able to slow down aging and live longer. So what do we have to do? Stop smoking, number one, which has been shown to significantly eat away our protective telomeres. But is there anything in our diet that's accelerating the process, speeding up aging? We didn't know until last year. 120 food item questionnaire. 2 foods were associated with telomere shortening, accelerated aging. You tell me which ones. In alphabetical order: coffee, fried foods, high-fat dairy, non-fried fish, processed meat, red meat, refined grains, or high-fructose corn syrup containing soda. I'll give you a hint. One of them was processed meat. But which was the other one? It was the fish, nipping at our DNA. Eating fish appeared to age people's DNA 6 years, and processed meat 14 years, in terms of how short the telomeres were of fish and lunch meat eaters. So fish and bacon appears to speed aging up, but is there any way to slow aging down, or even actually turn back the cellular clock and actually repair and lengthen our telomeres back up? Yes, but it appears we have to eat vegan. Dr. Dean Ornish wasn't satisfied with just reversing heart disease and cancer, so now he's trying his hand at reversing aging. There's a tree called bristlecone pine, which is the oldest living thing on Earth. There's one in California that started growing around the time the Egyptian pyramids were being built, about 5,000 years ago, and the tree is still going strong. Scientists found an enzyme in its roots called telomerase, which could actually rebuild the telomeres, and humans have the enzyme too. The problem is that no one had ever found a way to boost its activity but that's because no one had ever tried a whole foods, plant-based diet before. In a study funded by the U.S. Department of Defense, Ornish found that after just 3 months of a whole foods, plant-based diet, along with exercise, one could significantly boost telomerase activity. The accompanying editorial celebrated this breakthrough and hoped that this exciting outcome would encourage people to adopt a healthy lifestyle in order to avoid or combat cancer and age-related diseases. And I will leave you on that note. Thank you for watching. If you missed any of my previous volumes of my latest in nutrition series, you can go to my website or humanesociety.org/nutrition, where 100% of the proceeds will go straight to the Humane Society of the U.S. I hope to see you on the road this year. If not, I hope you'll see me on your TV for my next installment in 2010. Until then, we are what we eat, so please, eat healthy.